Hi everybody, Angelique Weiley here, and our topic today is conducting a professional meeting. Now, whether you are doing a meeting at work or you are conducting a meeting at your church or PTA, it's very, very important that you stick to professionalism, you keep on track, and that you are following some certain guidelines when conducting a meeting. So, one of the first things I want to talk about is obviously selecting the participants for your meeting, making sure that the subject of your meeting is important to the person that you're inviting and you're not wasting their time, especially in business. Managers and people who are very time crunched, we all are overcommitted. They would probably get very frustrated if you invited them and the subject or the topic really didn't concern them or they really didn't need to have anything to do with it. On the other hand, making sure that someone doesn't get upset because they were not invited and it really pertains to their job and they really should have known about the meeting and should have been at the meeting. So making sure that you're selecting the correct participants for your meeting is very, very important. The next thing is obviously putting together an agenda. Your agenda is kind of the takeaway for the participants in your meeting. It's kind of like a checklist of what you've been through. A lot of people print them out and they write their notes on them and then they save them. So an agenda is really it's very, very important. You have to have times on there, all of the topics that you're discussing. Put action items on your agenda as well, because if they're taking that away and there's action items on there, that's kind of their checklist of things that they might have to do to follow up from the meeting. And then, of course, it helps you stay on task. You need to have an agenda no matter what. It's very, very important. Then when you open your meeting, number one, make sure it's on time. Always start on time. People's time is very, very important to them. They don't want to waste time, so start on time every time. And then go around and do introductions, because unless it's a weekly meeting that everybody knows each other and it's on schedule and you guys always do this meeting, if it's a large meeting, you're bringing people together for the first time, or some people might not know each other, definitely do introductions. You also want to, during your opening, make sure that you set any ground rules for the meeting. Like if you want questions saved till last and you don't want people to ask questions or interrupt during the meeting, make sure that you point that out in the opening. All right. The next thing is make sure that you have a timekeeper and a recorder for your meeting, because you want someone that's going to be taking very good notes, so you could send out a follow-up email or you can follow up with people later. You want to make sure that you've caught every point. That was very, very important. But you also need that timekeeper to make sure that you stay on time with your meeting. Like I said, so many people these days are running from meeting to meeting, and it's very, very important that somebody's keeping time to be able to move these people out of the meeting to their next meeting. Another thing I want to talk about is when you're doing your setup for the meeting is make sure your technology is working and that you've tested it. And if you're doing a presentation, that your laptop is set up, you've tested it. If you're showing a video, make sure that it works. The only frustrating thing for people in meetings is the wasting of time. So if you have a video that you're showing and you didn't test it beforehand and people are waiting 10 minutes for you to try to get it to work during the meeting, it's very frustrating for people who are on time constraint. Also, while you're doing that in the middle of a meeting, people could start idle chatter and it really gets off of focus of the agenda, and it's hard to reel people back in once your video's ready, to get them to get back into their minds back into the meeting. Professionalism. Oh, I could not stress this more. And this is actually to help you develop your employees. Make sure that you always train your employees to be very professional in meetings. If they take their laptop in, fine, but make sure not that they're not just sitting there reading emails or working on other work or other projects during a meeting. I personally never take a laptop into a meeting because I just think it's insensitive. Same thing with technology. It's just so insensitive to me, like cell phones, people ringing their cell phones or texting. You're there to focus on the meeting and the agenda, and I always say, focus and be respectful to people who are talking and speaking. So I just take a notebook only, and then I take notes, obviously, because I want to know, what we're talking about and stay engaged, because we talked about, engagement in some of my other videos. But that's just more professional. And please develop your employees to tell them how to be professional in a meeting. Obviously, the importance of showing up to a meeting on time, if not a couple minutes early before the meeting starts. Please stress this to your employees. It was a pet peeve of mine for my supervisors or my managers to show up to meetings late because it doesn't look professional to the big bosses. And it didn't look well for me when my employees all showed up late to a very, very important executive meeting. I was there on time, but my employees linger in late and they're chatting as they come in the door. Doesn't look professional. And it was part of my goal setting with my employees to make sure that they did this. And it's a good development tool. Also, make sure if you've got any preparation or handouts that you have copies made. And for all the people you've invited with extras, it really holds up a meeting if you're running out of the room to go make copies. It just doesn't look professional, and it just doesn't look good. And then some other things is at the end of the meeting, have a closing. Give 5 to 10 minutes for people to be able to ask whatever questions they wanted to ask, add anything that they want to add. Sometimes people think, well, I got this great group of people together and I want to talk about this other topic. That's okay. While you have a room full of people of the right participants, and you need to just say, hey, while we're all together in this room, let's talk about this. That's okay. Evaluate the overall meeting. Tell people how you're going to follow up on the meeting and how you're going to send future emails, or if there's going to be future meetings to follow up on that meeting. But always have that 5 or 10 minutes at the end for your closing. I hope that I stress and I went through as much about holding a professional meeting as possible, and I just think that it's so important to have a very professional meeting and make sure that it comes off as a success. And if you can pull it off, that shows that you are a good organizer, you have good skills, and you can be a good manager as well. Have a great day.